Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Susan Moore. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at IIBA, and I am joined by a panel of guests today. We are going to be talking about maximizing project success with AI. I'm going to do a short introduction of our guest today, but first, some housekeeping notes. We don't have a slide deck today, but we are recording today's session. You'll get a link to the recording in 24 hours. And I'm sure there will be some more goodies that come your way probably next week. So take a peek at your inbox. You guys are doing a great job in chat. We love it when you talk with us and talk with each other. So keep on doing that. We are going to leave some time for questions today. You can use the Q&A box for that. And as always, we have got our reactions turned on and our speakers can see those. So make sure that you give them a thumbs up or you let them know that you like what you hear. That always helps us to know how engaged you are. Okay, let me do a quick introduction then. I think that's it for the housekeeping items. So we have Fernando Valera he's the CTO from Visual Solutions. He's going to be our requirements management perspective today. We've got Mark Summers. He's Quality Solutions Director with Apex Systems. We'll have our quality assurance perspective. And then Shane Hasty, he's the global delivery lead with SoftEd. He's repping the company with his shirt today. Good job. He's going to be our business analysis perspective in today's conversation. And then I'm just going to be the moderator of this great conversation. As I mentioned, there's no slides today, so I am going to stop my share somehow. And boy, it's hard when I have to do a couple of things at once. Here we go. All right, now I can see everybody. All right, so maybe what we'll do is as I'm asking you guys some questions, maybe when I send the question your way, you can just do that short introduction. So Shane, I am going to start with you in this question. Let's do some level setting here. First, let's start off with what does success on projects mean in the age of AI?
Oh, well.
I know that's a big question, right?
No my, howdy my.
And maybe we think about it in these terms. We think about it in terms of what makes a good business analyst on projects in the world of AI. That didn't help.
Let's just, what makes a good business analyst in the world of AI? Well, first of all, it's what makes a good business analyst, full stop. The fundamental underlying basic skills, the competencies, the chapter 9 stuff, the chapter 10 stuff from the Babok, those haven't gone away because we've got an AI tool to inform us. And I'm not going to say but, I'm going to say and we have to lean into truly being comfortable to leverage the tools. We've seen over years and decades the cycle times of the work that we do has had to shrink and get smaller. And we went from predictive sequential waterfall projects where we were trying to do everything up front, figured out that for most types of projects that doesn't work well. Now in the knowledge worker environment, we're almost always using some sort of an iterative, incremental, agile type approach where we're shrinking that cycle time from understanding what the need is to delivering a piece of business value. And the AI world allows us to shrink that even further. The access to certainly the generative AI tools that are able to help answer a lot of the questions. We also have to bring the healthy cynicism when we look at the answers to those questions. So I think there's a need for critical thinking has always been an important BA competency. it gets even more so.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to distinguish the useful, sensible from the hallucination, from the and even not the hallucination, the truthful response that isn't adding any value to what we're looking at. So that yeah, critical thinking and systems thinking,
Okay.
and the ability to again accelerate. So in my perspective, the AI tools enable good business analysts to really step up and be great, and they make it more obvious where the business analyst hasn't got those skills.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think that is an excellent point. I don't know, Mark or Fernando, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, listening to Shane talk, that really, with leveraging AI to do the heavy lifting, will allow business analysts and folks that do business analysis more time to spend with their clients solving the big meaty problems. That's what BAs are great at, are understanding the problem, right? And designing solutions around those problems and allowing AI to do some of the heavy lifting, allowing analysts to focus more time digging into those needs of their clients, stakeholders. And, I think that's going to add a tremendous value to their success.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Fernando.
yeah, I think the two aspects that I fully agree with from Shane, the critical thinking and the heavy lifting Mark mentioned are absolutely key. In terms of project success, I think the project success will always be the same. What will change are the tools. I think the AI revolution can equate to the internet revolution, right? Like we are getting new ways of doing the same things and achieving the same goal. So it's just like imagine sending a mail for every email we're sending nowadays. I mean, we would just not be able to work. So right now, AI is allowing us to go further and faster with all the risks that this comes with, right? And in terms of business analysts, they will have to navigate all these risks, and during that heavy lifting, the critical thinking is absolutely key, right? I think so. For instance, for my 4-year-old son, that's what I'm focusing on because I think that's what will differentiate like real business analysts from canned business analysts.
Yeah, so to sum up what I am hearing you guys say is that first of all, the skills that are essential to the work that we do, they become even more essential. Two, if you don't do them well, it becomes very obvious in the age of AI. I think is what I'm hearing you say. And so project success is dependent upon not just AI itself, but also that we bring these skills and really perform at a higher level than maybe we have been used to performing. I don't know. Maybe that puts too much pressure on us, but I think that's what I'm hearing you say. All right, so that gives us kind of the big picture. So what does success look like? It really is more dependent upon us to perform good business analysis. So Shane, this next question is also going to be for you. Thinking about elicitation in particular, because you mentioned stakeholders as part of that, how can AI help business analysts to identify those stakeholders? And how can it make us more prepared to for elicitation with those stakeholders?
I've actually done this with a real world initiative recently where I sat down, I was coming into a domain I didn't know a lot about. and I sat down with an AI tool. My tool of choice happens to be Perplexity AI because I feel it tells you its sources. And I sat down with it and said, I'm looking at this challenge. Tell me a bit about the domain. And it went out and it found and it came back and it summarized. Then I said, what would the key stakeholders be that I would need to talk to? And it came back and said, these are the types of folks. And then what would their concerns be? And it came back. Now, I took all of that, read through it, and I was more prepared to go and have a conversation with those stakeholders. I wasn't I wasn't trusting everything that the tool said, but it enabled me to more rapidly be prepared and have at my fingertips, here are some of the things that I believe this stakeholder or this class of stakeholder might be concerned about. This is what the AI tool has said. Let me go and validate or invalidate that within the elicitation conversation. So again, it reduced that learning cycle time and enabled me to have better conversations with those stakeholders. So I was doing the earlier research, and we've all since the dawn of the internet, we've done that sort of research as part of our analysis work anyway. It really did. It shrunk that down, the time down to understanding, and streamlined, helped me get a better. It reduced the amount of time I needed to spend in those elicitation interviews and conversations, and gave me really good questions to start with, and it uplifted my understanding.
Yeah.
Just a real example of shrinking that cycle time.
Yeah, so before, if you were using Google to do some research, you still had to wade through maybe a lot of stuff that didn't pertain. But here with AI tools, you can continue to ask questions and give it more context so that you can get to what are the good questions, what are the right questions faster. Yeah, yeah. So I'll open that up. Mark or Fernando, do you want to add anything to how can AI support with elicitation?
I think there's one important piece all of those important. Nice job, Jade. But one thing that stuck out was, you know, you read through all the research, unparalleled research, right? There's an incredible amount of research for you, but you can't believe it all, right? You talked about how you had to go through and validate some of it. So that's exactly what we're finding is that even though you do have to go back and still fact check it and make sure it's not giving you erroneous data and information, but it's still doing 80% of the work. It's still reducing your efforts by 80%. And if you have to go back and tune it and validate it, it's still what an enormous lift that it can give you with that 80%.
Yeah, and Shane, you mentioned that part of that also is knowing what are the responses that you might get back that are invalid, and then the truthful responses that don't add value. So there's also that piece of this in elicitation. You still have to have those skills of what is really going to be valuable for me to know, so that I can have good elicitation. Okay.
I
All
think
right.
one of the outstanding words that I'm hearing and also seeing in the chat is time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's I would say not only going to save us time, but actually what's going to happen is that we're going to be in a year or a couple of years' time, we're going to be expected to actually do what was taking us a couple of weeks in just one day. So that it's saving us time is that if you keep taking the same time that you're taking to do an elicitation phase in a year or two, then you're out of business, right? So basically, I think a good business analyst will have to be able to assess what's good or bad, like in a fraction of a second. You just review the answers and you say like, oh yeah, oh good call. I had forgotten about this part. The AI can analyze existing data for the, as Max was saying, the heavy lifting stuff. Everything that can be sort of automated will be done by that thing, that algorithm, as it was doing it, as Google was doing it, right? We're just going to far more advanced Google process, right? And then we have to focus on what really, really adds value. The critical thinking, focusing on the innovation, corner cases, something that has never been done before, because that's what the AI is not going to give you, right?
Yeah. As we're talking about this faster, obviously, making projects faster is another form of success. And I just think about all the well-intentioned companies that have looked to Agile to make things go faster. And in fact, I think AI actually has the potential to make projects go faster because some of those things, they are within seconds as opposed to, we iterate and iterate till we get it right. AI really helps us with that. Do you want to add to that, Shane? You look like you have a thought.
Yeah, they just looking at today it requires the tool, a little bit of tool chaining and understanding that you can take output from one tool, massage it, maybe in YAML, so forth, and pump it through a series of other tools. But you can go from a concept to a reasonable set of requirements to working code in minutes.
Yeah. Amazing, right?
That code today might not be perfect, but it's good enough. I could do a working prototype and show it. Then I can take a competent programmer and they can go through the code and improve it. And it's in the same way as it's increasing the cycle time of the analysis activity, it increases all of the other cycle times. There are tools that will do the screen design, and they do it well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're really shrinking that. And the other thing I think is it becomes incumbent to understand the other roles that will be involved in our value chains more deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is interesting. That is interesting. And I want to take that idea about tools. And Fernando, I'm going to ask you a question because a tool is kind of what you're part of, and maybe you want to talk about Visure as part of this answer. But right now, one of the things that often takes a long time is the production of whatever the artifacts are that the business analysts are going to produce, whether that's requirement specifications or models or any of that. And so the question for you is how can AI assist in generating and documenting those requirements?
So we manufacture and distribute a requirements management tool that can leverage AI for the business analyst, right? So apart from the usual capabilities, and we have been incorporating AI for all those steps like elicitation, things like figuring out a potential list of stakeholders that you need to interview, a potential list of standards that you need to comply with. That heavy lifting that we were talking about, like HIPAA, of course, we will come up to that solution, but if it gives us that first list, but many other capabilities. There was one of the questions in the chat about the modeling, right? And we do also support the modeling in something that obviously we are testing how useful all of this is and readjusting. So for instance, you can just type in something like, hey, we are building a battery system for electric eVTOLs or costs, and then it will draw the diagram for you. So just referencing what Shane was saying, English can become the new programming language. It's not C# or whatever. No, it's English, right? And then out of that, during a session in 15 minutes, we created an entire specification with diagrams for an airbag system. As you can imagine, I have no clue about airbags. So, I don't even know whether it was correct or not, but the attendees would point out like, oh, and that's really close. That's the 80% that is already there. And we did that in 15 minutes, right? What would take days and something like that. I think that we can, and going back to the previous topic, I think what we've seen is that in the past year, the agile processes in combination with DevOps, with AI, have extremely accelerated developments. But we're forgetting about that critical thinking. We just try to do it fast, and we're not even paying attention to the key thing. One of the topics that we've noticed that nobody thought about, and now we're paying the technical debt of that, was cybersecurity. And how companies use AI to actually attack our systems, right? So the critical thinking is being able to anticipate the problems that we might have in the future, whereas the AI will tell you how to solve the problems that somebody else had in the past, right?
Yeah. AI is kind of past looking as opposed to our human skills being able to look forward at what might happen. I know when we spoke a while ago, we were preparing for this, Fernando, you were also giving us some interesting information about that AI could, in addition to producing requirements document, it could also do some pretty cool things like check requirements against traceability. So when we think about requirements management, not just producing the requirements, but actually helping us to manage the requirements. I don't know if you want to talk more about that as well, because that's also a big time savings.
Yeah, exactly. And AI can be leveraged for so many things, right? The 80% of all the tasks that we do on a daily basis. So some of the things that we're incorporating, as you mentioned, is not only just generating all those artifacts or modifying them. So for instance, going back to the modeling, we create the model. It's not really there. So we can say, hey, but just add a new state and a new traceability and things like that. But once we have finished all that, the AI can also be used to analyze the data. And that's where it's really good at. That's really, really good at. Because we can say, am I missing something here? So before AI, it was impossible, right, to know if you were missing something. So it will still not be 100% there yet, but you have a little bit of extra brain there that will say, well, you're definitely missing a traceability here. Or you're missing requirements here. It's like, oh, damn, like, oh, yeah, of course. Like if you spend 2 weeks, you will get there. But and nobody will prevent you from actually having to go through that process. But the low-hanging errors will definitely be detected, right? And apart from that, like traceability between requirements and test cases, suggestions, all that can be done through the AI as well.
Yeah, so not just thinking about requirements as a deliverable that we produce, but requirements as the data by which we address other problems. And Mark, maybe this is maybe a good transition to you, because when we think about requirements as data, we also think about those impacts of requirements on our testing. So maybe tell us, and you've been doing some of this work with Apex Systems on using AI for quality assurance. So tell us a little bit about how AI can be applied to anticipate and prevent defects in requirements, not just in the code itself, but in the requirements.
Yeah, this kind of follows up on Shane and Fernando talking about, basically one data model will feed, or one type of data will feed the next thing we need to do. And, with requirements, right, everything we do from that point is going to be flawed, right? So basically, defects are a series of translation issues, right? We translate a customer client's ideas into business objectives, and we take business objectives. We've got a one-to-many relationship to business requirements. Those get translated by somebody, usually someone different than the original author, is now translating those into system requirements, let's say, and specs. And at each point that we translate this and eventually gets translated into source code, we have opportunities to introduce defects issues. So we've been building accelerators to help us identify, prevent issues from every phase of the delivery lifecycle. So a good example would be, taking requirements and validating them, testing them upfront, leveraging AI. So I believe business analysts have the hardest job in the world. I really do. Getting the customer's attention, their full attention, to pay attention and answer their questions, articulate their needs, and really think about it in a way, right? Because sometimes you kind of have their attention. They're not really focused, and or they conflict, with other requirements they've given you or from other document sources. So leveraging AI to do what we used to do as a formal inspection, right? You don't see it done a lot anymore because it's so time consuming to get a group of 5 folks, stakeholders, together and one by one review a massive amount of requirements. It's not possible in today's age, in an agile world where we're moving so quickly. Some of those practices have gone away. So leveraging AI to look for ambiguity in the words, looking for negation, dangling else's, compound requirements, all these things that make requirements so hard to understand. You can easily leverage AI right now today to improve the understandability and completeness of requirements, and we're doing it. And I with some creative prompting. So if you were to use ChatGPT or Gemini or anything right now, try it. Take one of your requirements, throw it in, and ask it to paraphrase back your requirement using its own words. So it can't use your words to paraphrase it back. And see if it understood the meaning of your required, if it got it right. And that's a great way to just validate your requirements. You can do it on a massive scale, provide an entire document, ask it to paraphrase your requirements, see if it came up with the correct meaning. And it's a great way to see, is this going to be understandable to my developers or whoever's going to take that work product next and do something with it. So great little experiment. And those are the kinds of things that we've been working on.
Now, you had also mentioned when we talked that you were using defects to understand, in analyzing the defects to understand where the requirements were introducing problems. And I thought that was also an interesting perspective as well, because we often think about, oh, well, we'll just have a lessons learned and we'll talk about the defects. But when you also use the defects as data for making the requirements better, not just the code, you really have kind of a full circle focus on quality. So, all right.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, good. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a great way. So you have a lot of incidents, problems, right, in production defects, and leveraging AI to do that root cause analysis and to understand where your defects are being introduced into the system. And often when we do this analysis for our customers, it'll be 60% during that requirement or design phase where defects are being introduced, not necessarily the source code itself. So yeah.
I am just amazed by that because again, as we think about condensing that amount of time, just the amount of stuff that you could learn through your defects that makes everything, upstream of that better. Man, that is the kind of retrospective that I think gets the attention of leaders. So any last thoughts on that? We kind of took it the route of some tools, but I'm just curious if you guys have any other thoughts to add, because we have a boatload of questions whenever you're ready.
There is the old adage, and I can't remember who said it, a fool with a tool is still a fool.
True. We got to talk about what are the risks here to the work that
Yeah.
we do by using AI. So maybe Shane, let's start with you on that.
I think that was Sean Hasty that said that.
I think that is Shane Hasty that said that.
No, it might have been Fred Brooks. And the other one, this one I truly don't know who said it, automating a bad process only makes bad things happen quicker. And with AI, that is one of the big risks, is that we do fall into we can do this really, really, really quickly. Should we do this? Are we doing the right thing? The AI tool will help us do it right quicker, but the choices, the decisions about are we truly doing the right thing, that is the human thinking, critical thinking piece that is so very, very important.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was us that had this conversation, but I was having a conversation with somebody about fail fast. And this AI gives us the ability to fail fast in ways that are not productive. By the way, fun fact, the middle letters of fail are AI. So I don't know if that's a sign, but it is something to think about. AI is in the middle of fail. Okay. There you go. But failing fast is in the way that I think a lot of companies use that concept is not the same as being sloppy. And AI, you could do things that are sloppy and harmful. So I think that's a good reminder. Any other thoughts on how AI could be harmful to projects or to business analysis?
So I don't know if harmful, but I definitely want to cover a comment about someone in the chat about why do people not use it being such a game changer, right? And my experience, in the past, I would say 6 months, and with real customers, and I see two risks or two concerns. The first one is what Shane, and Mark and yourself are raising, like we might become dumb thinkers in the sense that we think that AI might end up doing everything. I think we will very quickly realize, or everybody will realize, that that's not the case. It's just another tool. The critical thinkers will still be critical thinkers. The other concern that many organizations have is IP, copyright, and will someone steal our stuff, or are we stealing somebody else's stuff unknowingly, right? In terms of and this goes back to the same thing. I think organizations will have to really think about how to use it. There are the early adopters, of course. They will want to see whether AI helps you fail faster and try again, or whether there's real benefit to that. And I think that, first of all, there was a ruling saying that the AI artifacts cannot be copyrighted unless there is a significant, whatever that means, a human editing, right? So basically it's in line with what we're saying, that AI will give you the initial artifacts, and then you have to add your human touch to that, right? And I think that's what companies will realize. But it will take time for companies to, get over the scary face of the copyright, where is this coming from? And then how can we distinguish this from complete hallucinations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's going to be folks that, some of the risks, some folks would be really lazy and sloppy, as you were calling out, right? They're going to just take what the output is, accept it as gospel, and not do their due diligence. And a lot of folks are going to get really lazy, and their work and their outputs are going to actually get worse. But I think, most folks will embrace it, be curious, experiment, and understand where to use it, where to trust it, and where it's going to introduce risk. So I just would really encourage everybody to be curious and experiment.
Yeah, I think that's it. Experiment, and maybe experiment outside of work, and just see where you find the benefits of using AI. Well, I tell you what, so we have got a bunch of questions, so I want to get to those. You guys can probably also see the Q&A box. So what I always tell folks, tell our attendees, is that you can put your questions in the Q&A box, and if you see a question in there and you have the same question, give it an upvote. I take these in that order. So Archana has the first question. What are the AI tools that are available in the market that are related to requirements analysis? And what kind of heavy lifting can an AI tool do in that area? And maybe, Fernando, you seem like the logical first person to ask.
Yeah, exactly. I was excited to answer that one. So
Yeah, somebody just see that question, didn't you?
I feel like, thank you, Archana. Check's in the mail. Good job.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely Visure requirements manufactured by Visure Solutions. That's exactly what we do. So apart from just all the traditional requirements management capabilities, but now adding AI directly in the tool. In terms of heavy lifting, so what we mentioned, you can just click on the user interface and say, well, create an entire specification for whatever system, like software for any critical development, or whatever system, a medical device system, right? We tried with a particle accelerator, and it was pretty impressive, I gotta say. One of our customers was just like pretty shocked. But again, 80% of it, that's the heavy lifting, the initial creation of the template. You already have the chapters. You have an initial set of stakeholders, initial glossary of terms, the sections of the non-functional requirements with examples of non-functional requirements, samples of functional requirements, and then you can continue expanding, creating more requirements in there. You can start creating test cases automatically out of those requirements. So it would be like if someone else had created the requirements, and then you start working on those from a base, right? That's, I think, what we're all referring with heavy lifting here.
Yeah. So I think what I heard you said in the context of your tool, what the human has to provide is content and context. The heavy lifting is the production of the things, and then the human needs to come back and check the content and the context. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Any other thoughts on that?
I'm guessing all the commercial tools are adding AI capabilities. I know in the QA space, every tool is adding AI capabilities. So I'd be willing to bet majority of the commercial products have something they're building or have released. Not as good as Visure, but I'm just saying.
Excellent. All right. So our next question is from Ruth. What task do you think AI is most effective at helping a business analyst with? Shane, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, a lot of it in that getting started, as Fernando said, 80% the heavy lift, but where it doesn't help us is to then take that and go deep. Go to the subject matter expert in particle accelerators and say, what are we missing here? In order for this particle accelerator to be great, what does it still have to have that the AI hasn't got, because it's always looking backwards? The innovation, the brand new stuff, the AI tools are not going to help you with, but it's going to give you a really, really good basis for the things that absolutely have to be in there. But now, to make our particle accelerator the best particle accelerator in the world, what are we going to have to add to that? Because otherwise, if we just take what has been generated, we'll have another particle accelerator like everyone else's particle accelerator.
Yeah.
So it's that innovation piece, that the forward-looking, that the tools can't do, because they don't have that forward-looking data.
Yep. Anybody else want to answer that question? What task do you think AI is most effective at helping a BA with?
I'm just going to plug from the QA perspective, that requirements validation.
Yeah.
So I desperately need good requirements.
Yep. And assuming that you're using your requirements and your defects and other things as data and analyzing them, that can help you to have better requirements. Yep. Fernando, last thought there.
Yeah, I would distinguish between two AI activities. One of them is data analysis. I think AI is phenomenal in just looking at what you have and presenting it in other ways and answering questions, right? So that's really, really, really useful, right? When it gets to generating a generative AI, we consider it like miraculous right now, because it's something so new, right? What I am noticing lately, and lately it's been like in the past month or something like that, is that I'm finding in certain LLMs and in certain environments an echo chamber. So we have to be very careful. It's like anybody, if we train somebody with crap, the result is going to be crap. Like so you have to feed it with really good stuff, whether that's ChatGPT or whether that's your own internal LLM. So if all your projects have been crap and you use those in your LLM, guess what you're going to have in the next project, right? Same thing with ChatGPT. Like I think that the majority of the content generated in the internet today is generated through AI. So what's going to happen in a couple of years when ChatGPT learns from what it has generated itself, right? So we just have to keep an eye on that, right?
Yep. All right. So let's see. Here's our next question. So we've been using the term heavy lifting a lot. So this is Kimberly's question. She's wanting more clarification by what do we mean when we say heavy lifting? So what would be a day in the life of a business analyst that's using AI? And Mark, you're shaking your head, so I'm going to start with you this time.
Okay, I was sitting here thinking about QA, but that's okay.
Well, that's cool. I mean, what would because I think there are probably a lot of analysts here that are doing some QA work. So what would a day in the life of a QA using AI be?
Well, I'll answer the first question first, since that was the question. I think there's such an enormous amount of information and research for a business analyst. So the heavy lifting is all that reading, all that research, emails, documents, research out in the internet, wherever. And, you know, 10 hours of research now, can be narrowed down to maybe 10 minutes. I mean, that's where the 80%, is just one example in the QA world, taking a set of requirements, breaking it down, identifying, doing a orthogonal analysis or a pairwise analysis of those requirements, creating the test cases, the negative conditions, identifying the data that we need to do. For example, we did an experiment the other day with a customer who called me out in a meeting. So I was talking about all these things that, AI could do for us now, and did it right there live. They gave me a real requirement, plugged it in with some creative prompting. It was able to generate all the test cases, the data, the automation. So the Selenium scripts, a JMeter script for performance testing. So that's like 2 to 3 hours of work that it did in 2 minutes. And again, the results were decent. There's a lot of, as we reviewed some of those outputs, a lot of rework that you'd have to do, or not a lot, some rework you'd have to do, but that's heavy lifting.
Okay. All right. Heavy lifting. So when I think about your answer, then heavy lifting tasks that would typically take you a very long time, a lot of research, a lot of analysis, those would be what we mean. Shane, what do you mean by heavy lifting?
Yeah, same sort of thing. The tasks that the stuff that is really important to do that is almost mundane. So, but is really hard in some contexts. So if the challenge area or the opportunity you're looking at is in customer service in your own organization, and you've got your own LLM, we've got the walled garden that is, so we're not putting data out into the wild. I can take all of the customer service history. I can take the audio recordings of the last 5 years customer service calls, pump it through the tool, and then ask the questions. Tell me, what are the biggest challenges our customers are facing?
Wow.
Expose that, and then take that as a starting point. All right, how are we going to solve this problem? What are we going to do to address and reduce the number of customer service calls we're going to have? What are the most common solutions that our customer service team are giving our clients? And then we use that to then build into okay, take that as a set of requirements, turn it into a set of functional and non-functional requirements, examine the existing business process and how should that change, and what would we need to change in our software, and go so far as write the code.
Wow. And that would be a much shorter time period.
Yeah,
I've been on those projects.
You're talking hours and days
instead of
months.
Yeah, those are great examples. Fernando, do you want to add anything to this this question?
So I'll just reference the Kano model. It's just basically a representation that highlights different types of requirements, 3 areas. The what are called the basic expectations. Those are requirements that people don't even ask for because they give for granted. And then you have the satisfiers, which are the typical requirements that are being asked for. And then you have the delighters, which are things that nobody's asking for, but if you have them, then it's going to be the best thing in the world. So I think the heavy lifting is taking care of all the basic expectations. And there's a time component in here that turns the lighters into the satisfiers, things that, oh yeah, I want the touch screen, right? And then that becomes like something people don't even ask for because it's expected. So I think that all those basic elements that people give for granted can already be taken care of automatically, because sometimes we just don't say them because we don't want to spend the time, and then that bites us back, right? But if we have something that automatically takes care of that in terms of like basic stuff like I don't know, writing the requirements and generating the test cases and then testing that, then that you're covering the basic ground, and then you can put your brain power in those delighters to think about what is it that you can do that nobody else has ever done before, right?
Yeah, so those I think are some really good examples. All right, so hopefully that gives our audience a good understanding of what we mean by heavy lifting, because those made me understand it for sure. All right, so this next question, this is from Iris. How reliable are AI tools when working with highly confidential data to provide reports required to take critical decisions? I know that there's been a lot of talk about don't put really sensitive data into AI, but wouldn't decision making, especially important decisions, wouldn't they get a lift from AI?
Yeah.
Jane.
This now comes to your organization's relationship with the AI tool vendors. My company, we're a Microsoft partner. We're creating our own Copilot inside our walled garden, and that information will not go outside. But you do not put it into ChatGPT.
Yeah, do not. Yeah.
But and the tool vendors, the AI tool vendors, they know this. So your own LLM, your partner with your provider of choice. And Microsoft, for instance, is making they guarantee that if you're sued for copyright, for instance, and you've used their tool, they will indemnify you for it, and they'll bear the cost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've got that level of confidence.
Wow. Yeah. Let's see. Anything else on that one? I know I've been following chat a little bit, so I know that I can tell there's a lot of use of Copilot that's starting to go on. A number of folks have mentioned that they're starting to use Copilot in their organizations. Let's see. So Ruth asked our next question. Are there things you think AI is not effective at helping with? I think you've mentioned maybe a couple of those today, but are there subject areas, tasks that we should just avoid AI for? Shane.
The truly forward-looking brand new stuff, that it's just not going to be able to envisage what isn't there.
Yeah.
It might be able to do some extrapolation based around the past, but the intuitive creative leaps the AI tools are not doing, but the human brain is exceptional at. So that brand new, some of, as Fernando says, the delighter stuff that nobody else has done before. Those are the things that we want to add to, but we're using the AI tools as a foundation, and then we make that leap on top of. Those are the things where I see the gaps.
Okay. Any other gaps in either requirements management or QA? Fernando.
Yeah, I think I would reiterate that, like it can give you the basic stuff, but it's not going to think for you. So you have the responsibility. You can never delegate the responsibility to the AI. So you have to define your process, and you have to follow your process, and then use it as a tool to accelerate it, make it better, and so on. So we will still have to think, and going back to the beginning, we will have to improve in our critical thinking, right? And in terms of the delighters and what Shane was saying, that we have a different way of having imagination, right? So learning about what imagination is, it's actually I got a little bit scared when I found out that it's not that far away to what like AI is doing, because our mental process simulates that, or AI simulates what we're trying to do. However, because let's say 500 years ago, nobody invented the cell phone. So we can only go improving iteratively on smaller steps. And how is that done? So that is done by taking our experiences in the real life and converting them into ideas. And that is the gigantic difference between AI, because the AI is not going to have experiences out of the internet, right? Whereas we can just go out and hiking and find a squirrel doing crazy things. And we're like, oh, wow. Or we see a bird and we're like, oh, wow, why don't I put, wings on this piece of metal, right? And that's what's going to bring the uniqueness or the human factor into the equation that AI will never be able to do.
Yeah, I've tried to leverage AI to do really innovative and creative things. And I find myself doing so much prompting to get it to innovate that I basically told it the innovation and asked it to expand on it. So yeah, I don't use it to try to, out of the box type thinking to create and innovate, because I find it, I'm basically telling it how to respond.
And do you see any gaps for AI in the QA space? Is there anything where you've thought, okay, this is not going to be good for quality assurance work? Have you found any boundaries with it?
Not really. I think that, like I indicated earlier, every phase of the delivery life cycle, there's a appropriate way to leverage it and get extreme efficiencies and extreme quality by leveraging it. It's just back to what we've said, the 80% thing all throughout here, is, it's great at generating information. You do have to validate it. Don't get lazy.
All right, let's see. So I'm scanning through these questions. By the way, for our attendees, you are asking great questions. We have so many that we can't get to today. One theme that I see going through a lot of these questions is tools. Lots and lots of questions about tools, whether it's the best tools, the most responsible tools. Maybe that's just a reminder of what Shane said at the top, that, what did you say? A fool with a tool is
Fool with
still
a
a fool?
tool is still a fool.
Yeah. So I know that the vendors are doing a really good job to build in that AI, but I think that the users also have to know how to use those tools. So I don't know. I don't know that we need to give a list of tools, but maybe any last thoughts about tools that BAs could be using to maximize project success, or any they shouldn't be using? Maybe is
As
the other
I
question.
articulated earlier, all the vendors are building AI into their product. So it's really going to be, still based off your individual requirements and needs, and evaluating all the different tool vendors. Because, for example, probably Tricentis has the biggest headwind in the QA space on AI, but then, Agile IQ will have some great little feature that they've thought of that Tricentis has, and each vendor is really taking a different slant on an approach to integrating and leveraging AI. So it's really just, what are your needs, evaluating the products to make sure that they have those capabilities.
Yeah.
And
Fernando.
I think there's the need of really evaluating those tools, in the sense that you might have the need of having particularly analysis on the automotive sector or the defense sector. Then you will definitely have to create your own LLM. So for instance, in defense, your ChatGPT is not going to give you anything related to defense because none of that is public information. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
So yeah, that's the results in there are going to be like pretty bad. So you have to create your own with your own stuff. Whereas for some more generic developments, you might want to go for something that is not very specific to your organization. You might want to go for a broader kind of database or LLM that gives you the breadth that you require for your development. So I completely agree with Mark that you have to evaluate all the options out there and see which one is best for you.
All right. Shane, I'll give you the last word. We are at time, but maybe you want to leave us with a thought on project success.
I come back to the tools, the LLMs will help us. They give us a good foundation. We still need critical thinking. We still need systems thinking. The chapter 9 skills become even more important. The people skills, because the tools are going to do some of the, as we've called it here, the heavy lifting, the 80%, but it's that 20% that is going to make success. And I have a genuine concern that in our industry, we're not going to teach new business analysts that 20%. There's going to be a laziness. And that worries me as potential in the future, a potential challenge in the future. How do we make sure? Because, yeah, people who've gone through, who've got the CBAP, who've done the CCBAs, they've had to think deeply about building those competencies. If I can come in at the 80%, do I know what the 20% is? Mm-hmm. And that is a genuine concern. And it's not just a concern I have in the business analysis space. I think it's in almost all of the knowledge worker areas where we're starting to leverage these tools. And the people who have come into using these tools with the background and experience, with that 80% already there, they've got it. But for people coming in new, I am a little bit worried.
Okay. All right. So on that note, we will wrap up. We want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I want to thank you all for a great discussion. Shane, Fernando, and Mark, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a lovely conversation, and now you can see all of the reactions coming through. So I can tell that everybody really got a lot out of today's session. So they are going to be thinking critically about AI and project success. All right. Thank you all again. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Susan,
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
us today.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to have the session with us. It was really amazing questions, very stimulating.
That was a lot of fun. Great job, Susan. That was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank
See
you
you soon. Bye-bye.